Hello, hello, beautiful lights. Welcome back to another episode of Alchemy with a K. My name is Landon. I'm an intuition mentor and energy alchemist. I am here as a facilitator, a reminder, an honest reflection of yourself, just to remind you that you are your own most powerful healer and that you are the one here to make the change. In today's episode, I am just feeling this call to talk about contracts. And this is for a lot of people, it's one of the newer, more complex topics within the spirituality realm. And so, let's just go ahead and dive in to contracts. And just to be totally transparent, I just received these questions and I wanted to just dive right on in, so I didn't prepare. And so this is going to be very highly intuitively based, and also some channeled information from my guides and any other light beings that wish to come through today. So just ground down, take a breath. So let's just sit where you are, feeling yourself connected to the floor, to the ground, to Mother Gaia. Whether it's your feet connection or your sits bones, your pelvic floor, just feeling all your energy drop. And drop again. And drop even deeper into the floor. As we take a nice collective deep breath in through the nose. And letting it out through the mouth with a nice sigh. Let's do one more just like that. Nice deep breath in. And letting it out. Okay. Setting the intention to know that any and all information that needs to be portrayed will come through today. So contracts. Specifically, the questions that actually one of my friends was asking about was, where is the balance between the everything happens for a reason, but then also the interaction that darker entities can distort information. And so that's where our discernment and our intuitive power and our internal power comes in, is because yes, everything happens for a reason, and we have contracts that we are experiencing and living through, but we also live in a physical and non-physical world where darker energies exist and can distort information so that it will lead us to make different decisions. So contracts, just for those who aren't as familiar with the term, contracts, in my understanding, my perception, are blueprints. They're aspects of our life blueprint that we discuss and we agreed to before coming to this life. And so wherever you believe we were before coming and embodying the physical human that we are in right now, wherever you believe we were beforehand, contracts is the idea and the experience of, in that space, we sat down and we said, okay, I want to learn this lesson. So maybe it's a lesson of empowerment or self-love. And so how do we learn those lessons? It's through major life events, or it's through the little baby steps through your entire life. And so those would be contracted events. There's also little baby contracts, I guess you could say, of perhaps you had up a contract with a certain diet, and then you complete that contract, so then you get a new diet, or you meet a new person, or you have a contract to meet someone from your past life to complete lesson that you needed to learn from them, and once you complete it, that contract is complete, you move on to the next thing. So the way I would define a contract is any and everything that you have agreed to experience in this life. That is what I would consider to be a contract. And so that can be from as grand as experience love, that can be a contract, and however the universe and you co-create that experience, that's how the contract will present and complete itself. There's also the contract of, I've heard the example of having a contract with a donut. You can have a contract with with a piece of food, And in that moment, you have that contract for the 5 seconds or the 30 seconds, however long it takes you to eat the food. You have that contract to experience that in that moment, as everything happens for a reason. With all of this being said, and I'm really trying to break this down, and we'll continue to break it down as we go through, but everything happens for a reason. When there is darker energy involved, so this is when there's a little bit of tainted energy, or somebody there, the term hijacked is coming through, when a light worker, a light being, has a bit of discrepancy in their understanding and their dismantling of darker systems, and perhaps they get it gets twisted in the perception of what it is that we're actually going towards. These darker entities can distort the vision and can distort the understanding and the direction that light beings take. And so when everything happens for a reason, everything happens for a reason in the direction of our manifestations, in the direction of our soul desire, in the direction of our highest self's intent. Okay, and so when we say everything happens for a reason, yes, and you learn everything you need to from those situations, but when there is darker energy involved, yes, you learn so much from all of that experience, but you don't have to. There are higher ways to learn and to experience and to complete those contracts, because a contract is not specified to a specific, it doesn't have to be specified to a specific event. It doesn't have to be specified to, in order to learn the balance between light and dark, you're going to be haunted for 15 years of your life from this certain demon or what have you. That is not how I perceive a contract. I perceive contract of, okay, I desire to learn the lesson of balance, and so how that presents itself, perhaps you have one timeline where, yes, you have that experience, or you have another timeline where you grow up in a darker environment, and then you come to the light later in life, or vice versa. And that's how you learn what that balance is, and that's how the contract is complete. In the society I was brought up in, very much of contracts. When we think of contracts, I think of legal documents, and there's down to the dotting the I, crossing the T, making sure there's no spelling errors, there's no grammatical errors, it's very to the point, it's very clear, there's no room for any loopholes, there's no room for any sways, versus a spiritual contract is very open. It seems to be very open, even down to, like, back to the donut example. Perhaps it's not so much that you have a contract with a donut as much as you have a contract to experience different forms of pleasure during that phase in your life. And so that is how more so I view contracts. And I'm just going on a ramble about how I define contracts. But again, a contract is just an experience that you have agreed to in order to learn a lesson. Big, small, what have you. And yes, darker beings can distort the information, but again, everything happens for a reason. And so in distorting the information, perhaps you bring in a different lesson within the lesson that you're learning. So, hoping that makes sense for you. The other question that I wanted to dive into is it everything in life, or is it just major events? And I've touched on that a little bit, but again, everything in this life happens for a reason. And it happens for a reason because our higher self comes in and desires for us to progress as much as we can. Our ego mind takes control often, and it doesn't alter or deter us away from our progression. It can slow it down, and it can deepen it. And so a lot of times we think of the ego as being something that we are trying to get away from, or we're trying to process through, or we're trying to step back from, versus utilizing it as an asset, as a tool to really, okay, well, my ego is feeling threatened in this moment. It's feeling not safe. It's feeling uncomfortable. And so why is that happening? What is the lesson here? What can I do to really feel into this moment and dive even deeper into this moment so that I can come out on the other side and experience everything that I can within this moment, so that I get every little nugget that I can out of this everything happens for a reason. Okay? So as far as contracts, that's just my little take on what a contract is. Darker beings can influence. They can influence our contracts, and they can really deter us from completing the contracts. And not so much from completing them, but they can stall us from completing the contract. So perhaps we didn't complete some in some past lives because we had darker entities involved, and so in this life, disconnecting from those darker entities, we're coming into this life with a fresh slate. We don't remember any sort of interaction with those darker entities, so we don't have that connection. Already we have a fresher start, a clean slate, a clearer path to finish and complete those contracts, especially as we are heightening the consciousness of this world, of this planet, and of this dimension. We can complete the contracts easier. For those of us who do channel, for those of us who do have that, not have that connection, but for those of us who are open and willing and practicing the connection to our higher self, to higher beings, and to these higher consciousnesses, we need to be extremely cautious of what we are bringing into this reality. Again, we are trying to heighten the frequency of this planet. We're trying to raise the level of frequency and the level of consciousness. And if we are bringing in and anchoring in dark entities into this reality, all we are doing is elongating the third dimensional experience, which has its purpose. And so perhaps in doing that, you have a lesson to learn, I have a lesson to learn, or the people we interact with have a lesson to learn for being in the third dimension more elongated for a longer period of time. Versus if we are channeling only light, if we're only channeling into this reality, the higher consciousnesses and what we are actually wanting to embody and what we are actually wanting to experience, that is when we really anchor in, and that is when we really shift the frequency of the planet, and that is when our contracts are automatically completed through all the quantum realms. It's not just like, oh, I want to complete this contract, I want to complete this contract, and it's not as analytical as we like to make it out to be. It's very much a natural happening. Your life is a natural happening. You are alive, you breathe, you don't focus on breathing every breath you take, although that would be amazing, and just imagine all the presence you have if you just imagine every breath. Wow, that would be incredible. Just a practice you can do. So when we're anchoring in and when we're talking of contracts, yes, we have contracts that we are completing, and we are completing them daily. And minute by minute, we are completing contracts. Even in making this podcast, this episode, I have this contract with making and creating this content and putting out this information. I have this contract, and after I complete this, this is a contract that I have completed. Okay? Or it could be an aspect of a bigger contract if I wanted to dive deeper into that. But again, contracts are they're just agreements that we had before this life to learn lessons that we are desiring to learn. Our highest self is desiring to learn. And perhaps in this life, that shifts. Okay? It's just like when I'm trying to think of an example, but when you say, for instance, you have a trip that you want to take, and you go on the trip, but maybe the restaurant you wanted to go to was closed, and so what do you do for food? You have to go somewhere else. But you had planned on going to the restaurant that you really, really wanted, but it was closed, and so you have to go somewhere else. And that is really like when you incarnate to this life and you're in this human body, maybe the situations it sets you up to learn a different lesson. So perhaps you wanted to learn the lesson of unconditional love, but instead of learning that lesson, you're learning the lesson of true light. Because the life and the situations and everything happening as it happened sets you up to learn a deeper relation with a different contract, with a different lesson. And so even though we have these contracts, and when we think of contracts, I always think of something that's binding and you can't change it, but that's not the case in spirituality, that's not the case in life experience. anything and everything is malleable, it's always shifting, and it's always up in the air, and nothing is solidified, though everything is happening as it is meant to be happening. So this is where we get into the like, okay, well, fate and destiny, and this is meant to happen, but also I have free will and I can choose what it is that I experience. Contracts is just here as just a freaking label. It's just a freaking label of what it is that we desire to experience. And so it helps our human mind understand what it is that we are designed to experience, and that way we have an agreement and almost a self-accountability with our highest self of learning that lesson, of really diving into that experience and getting all and everything that we can out of what it is that we are meant to be experiencing, that we desire to experience. Not meant to, but desire to experience. As everything in this life we can choose to experience, we can choose not to experience. And that is on the subconscious level just as much as it is on the conscious level. So that's what I'm feeling called to share about contracts. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at EnerGenetic.Alkemy. Check out my weekly group Cell Lunar events. We get together every Thursday at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time just to chit-chat, check in with the moon phases. It's a really beautiful community that we got going on, channeling information, really getting in touch with our emotional side, and just embodying this divine feminine that we are moving into, and understanding how the divine feminine and the divine masculine really co-create this experience that is human. But yeah, let me know what you guys' thoughts on contracts are. I love to talk about it. This is my little roundabout way. I hope it made sense. It made sense to me, but I know a lot of times the words that I speak often are translated and understood on a vibrational level, and so if the conscious mind is taking a second to understand this information, maybe go back and listen to it a second time, or a third time. But lots of love to you, and if you're desiring more energetic support or conscious support, subconscious alchemy, definitely reach out to me on Instagram, or you can email me EnerGenetic.Alkemy@gmail.com. But yeah, let me know. I am here for you. I am here as a reminder for you to step into your power, as a reminder for you that you are a freaking boss-ass bitch, and you are here as a goddess, a divine being, and a light worker, a way-shower, an awakener, a DNA activator. Literally everything in this existence you are. And that's why I'm here, just to remind you that you are freaking amazing. I love you. Thank you for listening. And until next time, I love you.